At the beginning of Ezekiel, we find the prophet sitting by a river, very similar to this one, far away from home, sitting around a group of basically refugees who have been taken from their land. He is dejected, he's most likely hopeless, and he is not knowing where to go forward. And we find in those opening chapters that God gives him a vision of heavenly creatures, of angelic hosts, of wonderful, marvelous things that eventually end with the actual vision of God himself sitting in a throne. Ezekiel describes the vision as the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God. And the thing about the vision is, although it's amazing and wonderful, and Ezekiel gets to see the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God, at the end of it all, God brings him back to here, by the river where it all started, by the river where he was sitting last, with a group of those who have been dejected, those who are alone, where Ezekiel was. And what strikes me about the opening passages of Ezekiel is that it talks about, although Ezekiel sat there for 7 days with the group, it says that he was astonished. It says that Ezekiel sat by the river for 7 days, being amazed by the sight that he'd seen, being astonished by it. And what strikes me most about this passage is that even though outwardly nothing changes right away, Ezekiel is still by the same river that he was, he's still by the same people he was, his situation hasn't changed hardly at all. By any standards looking on the outside in, he is still by the river. He's still dejected, alone in a faraway country. But something has changed. Now, Ezekiel is astonished. Now, Ezekiel has something to live for. I believe so much of the Christian life is in the internal, in the spirit of the man. So much of what happens is determined by our view of God. We look around us, we look at the rivers, we look at the mountains, and we see that God has done great things. We look in our lives, we look in the story of the Bible, of Jesus dying on the cross, the life he lived, the miracles that he has wrought in our lives. And for those who just go around their lives and they never once stand in astonishment of God, they're never going to do much for him. They are never going to do anything for the God who created the river and the God who created the mountain. The book of Nahum says that in his presence the mountains melt, the rivers dry, the earth is reshaped in his presence. And what we find is that there's so many Christians who's waiting for a sign, waiting for some great thing to happen, waiting for some marvelous interaction by God, when they're just never willing to just stand and be amazed. In that moment, you'll look around, and just like Ezekiel, you'll find that although nothing has changed, you're still by the river, you're still in a foreign land, you're still surrounded by people who are dejected and hopeless. Though nothing has changed, everything is different. That's what being astonished by God does.